Arthur Conan Doyle, The Adventure of the Mazarin Stone. It was a pleasure for Dr. Watson to find himself once again at Baker Street, in the untidy second-floor room that had been a starting point for so many remarkable adventures. He looked at the charts and diagrams hanging on the walls, the acid-stained chemical shelf, the violin case propped against the corner wall, and the coal scuttle, which had once served as a hiding place for pipes and tobacco. Finally, his eyes rested on the fresh, smiling face of Billy, the young but very capable and observant servant. Billy seemed to have succeeded in bridging the gap of isolation and loneliness that surrounded the mysterious figure of the great detective. Everything here is just as it was, Billy, and you haven't changed a bit yourself. I hope the same can be said for him. Billy looked toward the closed bedroom door with a hint of concern. He seems to be sleeping, sir, he said. It was a bright summer evening, and only 7 o'clock, yet Billy's suggestion did not surprise Dr. Watson. He had long been accustomed to the eccentric lifestyle of his old friend. That means, if I'm not mistaken, that he is in the middle of a case, does it not? Quite right, sir. He is completely absorbed in it now. I'm actually worried about his health. He gets paler and thinner every day, and he eats nothing at all. When Mrs. Hudson asked him, "When will you be pleased to dine, Mr. Holmes?" he simply replied, "At 7:30 the day after tomorrow." You know how he is when he is on a trail. Yes, Billy, I know. He is hunting someone. Yesterday, he was out as a workman looking for a job. Today, he dressed up as an old woman. It was so convincing that I didn't recognize him at all, and I thought I knew his ways by now. With a grin, Billy pointed to a remarkably battered umbrella leaning against the sofa. That is one of the props for the old woman's costume. But what is the case this time, Billy? Billy lowered his voice as if speaking of a great state secret. I can tell you, of course, sir, but no one else must know. It is the business of the Crown Diamond. You mean the theft of the 100,000-pound stone? Yes, sir. They must find it at all costs. Both the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary have been here, sitting right on this very sofa. Mr. Holmes was very gracious with them. He wasn't at all pretentious and promised to do everything possible. And then there was Lord Cantlemere. Oh, really? Yes, sir. You understand what that means. He is, if I may say so, terribly stiff and arrogant. I can deal with the Prime Minister, and I have nothing against the Home Secretary. He seems a well-bred and pleasant gentleman, but I simply cannot stand that lord, and neither can Mr. Holmes. The fact is, he doesn't believe in Mr. Holmes and was against him being given the case. I think he would even be glad if Mr. Holmes failed. And does Mr. Holmes know this? There has never been a case of Mr. Holmes not knowing something, sir. Well, I truly hope he succeeds and Lord Cantlemere is humbled. Tell me, Billy, why is that curtain across the window? Mr. Holmes put it up 3 days ago. We have something quite curious back there. Billy stepped forward and drew back the curtain that partitioned off the window niche. Dr. Watson could not help but cry out in surprise. Before him, in a deep armchair, sat a perfect replica of his old friend. The dressing gown and everything else were exactly like Holmes. The face, turned 3/4 toward the window, was tilted slightly down as if over an unseen book. Billy lifted the head off the shoulders and held it in his hands. We move it into different positions to make it look more like a living person. If the blind weren't down, I certainly wouldn't dare touch it. When a blind is up, it can be seen from across the street. We had something like this once before. I wasn't here then, sir, said Billy. He moved the curtains slightly and peered out. They are watching us from the house opposite. There's a man in the window. Would you like to see? Watson took a step forward, But at that moment, the bedroom door opened and the tall, thin figure of Holmes appeared. His face was gaunt and pale, but his manner was as alert as ever. With one spring, he reached the window and adjusted the curtain. "That will do, Billy," he said. "You were risking your life, and I happen to need you very much right now. Glad to see you, Watson, back in your old quarters. You have arrived at a critical moment. I can feel it, Holmes. You may go, Billy. I don't know what to do with that boy. I wonder how far I am justified in exposing him to danger." "What danger, Holmes?" "The danger of sudden death. I should not be surprised if something happens tonight. But what exactly? For instance, that I am murdered." "Surely not, Holmes. You're joking. Even with my lack of humor, I could think of a better joke than that. But in the meantime, we may enjoy life, may we not? Alcohol is not contraindicated for you, I hope. The siphon and the cigars are in their old place. I trust you don't yet despise my wretched tobacco and pipe. In these days, they must serve as my food. But why do you refuse to eat?" "Because starvation sharpens the mental faculties. My dear Watson, as a medical man, you must agree that during digestion, the brain loses exactly as much blood as is required for the stomach's work. At this moment, I am nothing but a brain. The rest of me is a mere appendix. Therefore, I must consider the brain above all else." "But you spoke of some danger, Holmes?" "Ah, yes. In case of accidents, it might be wise to burden your memory with the name and address of my murderer. You can pass the information to Scotland Yard as a parting greeting from your devoted Holmes. His name is Sylvius, Count Negretto Sylvius. Write it down. 136 Moorside Gardens, Northwest." "Got it." Watson's honest face twitched with nerves. He knew all too well that Holmes never hesitated in the face of danger and was more inclined to underestimate it than to exaggerate. Watson was not one to waste time. He rose resolutely to his feet. "I am at your disposal, Holmes. I am perfectly free for the next few days. In a moral sense, Watson, you have not changed for the better. To all your old vices, you have added a new one. You have learned to lie. Your whole appearance screams that you are a busy doctor, besieged by patients. None of them are particularly serious. Why can't you just arrest this man?" "I certainly could, Watson. That is exactly why he is so worried." "Then what is the problem?" "The problem is that I do not know where the diamond is." "Ah, yes. Billy mentioned it, the crown diamond." "Precisely. The great yellow Mazarin Stone. I have cast my net, and the fish is caught, but I have not yet secured the stone. What good is it to take the robbers? Of course, the world would be a better place if they were all behind bars. But that is not my goal. My goal is the stone. So, Count Sylvius is one of the fish in your net?" "Yes, and a shark that bites at that. The other is Sam Merton, the boxer. Sam is not a bad fellow, but the Count uses him for his own ends. He is no shark, just a big-headed, foolish gudgeon. But even so, he is struggling in my meshes. And where is this Count Sylvius? I spent the whole morning right under his nose. You saw me in my old woman's character. Never have I been more successful. The Count even picked up my umbrella, saying, 'Allow me, madam.' He is half Italian, you see, and like a true Southerner, he can be extraordinarily polite when he is in the mood. But when he is not, he is a perfect devil. As you can see, Watson, the most curious things happen in life. But it could have ended tragically. I don't deny it. I followed him to old Strabinzi's workshop in the Minories. He had an air gun made there, a magnificent piece of work. If I'm not mistaken, it is in that window opposite us right now. You saw the dummy? Yes, Billy showed you. At any moment, a bullet could strike that beautiful head. What is it, Billy? Billy entered with a card on a tray. Holmes glanced at it. His eyebrows rose, and a smirk played on his lips. He has decided to pay us a visit in person. This I did not expect. We must take the bull by the horns. Watson, this man is capable of anything. You have likely heard that the Count is a famous big-game hunter. If he manages to add me to his bag, it would be a worthy and brilliant end to his sporting career. He feels, of course, that I am closing in on him. Send for the police. I likely will, but not just yet. Look out carefully, Watson, and see if there is anyone in the street. Watson peered cautiously from behind the curtain. There is a big, burly fellow standing near the door. That would be Sam Merton. Faithful, but not overly bright Sam. Where is the gentleman, Billy? In the waiting room, sir. When I ring, show him in. Very good, sir. Even if I'm not in the room, show him in regardless. Very good, sir. Watson waited until the door closed, then turned to his companion with urgency. Listen, Holmes, this is impossible. The man is desperate. He will stop at nothing. He may have come here to kill you. I shouldn't be at all surprised if he has. In that case, I shall stay with you. Your presence might be a great distraction. To him, no, my dear fellow, to me. And yet, I cannot leave you alone. Yes, Watson, you can and you must. You have never yet dropped out of a game, and I am sure you will see this one through to the end. This man came here for his own purposes, but it is possible he will stay for mine. Holmes took out a notebook and scribbled a few lines. Go to Scotland Yard and give this note to Yoel of the Criminal Investigation Department. Return with the police, and then the Count can be arrested. I shall be happy to help you with that. I hope that by the time you return, I shall have just enough time to discover where the stone is. Holmes rang the bell. Perhaps we had better leave through the bedroom. It is extremely convenient to have a second exit. I prefer to look at my shark without him seeing me, and, as you know, I have a little something prepared for such occasions. Thus, when Billy showed Sylvius in a minute later, the room was empty. The famous marksman, sportsman, and dandy was a large, swarthy man. His enormous black mustache concealed a thin, cruel mouth, over which hung a long, hooked nose resembling an eagle's beak. He was well dressed, but his bright tie, sparkling pin, and glittering rings were far too flamboyant. As the door closed behind him, he looked around fiercely and yet fearfully, as if expecting a trap at every turn. Suddenly, he jerked back, noticing the serenely bowed head and the collar of a dressing gown visible over the back of the armchair by the window. At first, his face showed utter amazement. Then, the assassin's dark eyes gleamed with joy. He looked around once more to ensure he was not being watched. Then, raising his heavy cane, he crept on tiptoe toward the silent figure. He was already crouching for the final spring to deliver the blow when suddenly, from the open bedroom door, Holmes's calm and mocking voice stopped him. "Pray do not break it, Count." The murderer recoiled, his distorted face full of wonder. He raised his cane once more, as if wishing to transfer his rage from the image to the original. But there was something in the steady gaze of Holmes's gray eyes and his mocking smile that made the man's hand drop. A charming piece of work by the French master tavernier. He is as clever at modeling wax figures as your French Drabanzi is at making air guns. Air guns? I do not understand what you mean by that, sir. Put your hat and cane on the table. Just so, thank you. And please take a seat. Perhaps you would like to take out your pistol as well? Though, if you prefer to sit on it, I have no objection. You have come at a very opportune moment. I must have a word with you. The Count knitted his thick eyebrows threateningly. I also wanted a word with you, Holmes. That is why I came. I won't deny it. I was just about to smash your head in." Holmes sat on the edge of the table. "I gathered that you had something of the sort in mind. Why have I earned such attention from you?" "Because you take too many liberties. It is beginning to get on my nerves. Because you send your underlings to follow me. I have sent no one. I give you my word of honor." "Don't talk nonsense. I saw that I was being followed. But we shall see who wins in the end, Holmes. It is a small matter, Count Sylvius, but I must ask you to address me with the proper rules of courtesy. You understand that, in my line of work, I have to deal with half the criminals in the city, and you must agree that I can make no exceptions, lest I tempt others to follow suit." "Very well. Let it be Mr. Holmes." "Excellent. However, I assure you, you are mistaken in claiming that I use agents." Count Sylvius laughed scornfully. "Don't think I am more foolish than you and notice nothing. Yesterday, it was some sportsmen. Today, an old woman. They didn't let me out of their sight for a single minute. You flatter me, sir. Old Baron Dowson, the day before he was hanged, said that the stage lost as much in me as the law gained. And today you praise me for my little transformations. So it was you?" Holmes shrugged his shoulders. "There in the corner stands the umbrella which you, suspecting nothing, so politely handed to me. If I had known, I would never have seen this humble dwelling again, you mean to say? I understood that well enough. We all make slips that we later regret. But one way or another, you did not recognize me, and here I am sitting before you." The Count's heavy brows, from under which his eyes flashed menacingly, drew even closer together. "So much the worse. It means that instead of agents, it is you yourself playing the fool and poking your nose into business that isn't yours. You admit yourself that you were following me. Why? Come now, Count. You once hunted lions in Algeria. What of it? Let me ask you why. Why? For sport, for the thrill, for the risk. And, besides, you wanted to clear the country of predators? Quite right. Now you understand my goal?" The Count sprang up, his hand instinctively reaching for his back pocket. Sit down, Count. Besides that, I have another, more specific goal. I want the yellow diamond." With a sinister smile, Count Sylvius sank back into his chair. "Is that so?" he uttered. "You knew perfectly well that it was for this I followed you, and you only came here today to find out how much I know and how necessary it is to eliminate me. Believe me, from your point of view, it is absolutely necessary, for I know everything, except for one single fact, which I expect to learn from you." "Really? I am curious to know what this one fact is that you do not know. Where the diamond is at this moment." The Count gave his companion a cunning look. "Is that all? But confound it! How could I possibly tell you that? You can, and you will." "You think so? Count Sylvius, you cannot intimidate me." Holmes's eyes, fixed upon Sylvius, narrowed and flashed menacingly, like points of steel. "I can see right through you, as if you were made of glass. In that case, you can see where the diamond is." Holmes clapped his hands joyfully and then raised a finger expressively. "So you do know where it is. You have admitted it yourself. I admitted nothing. Now listen, Count, if you are reasonable, we can strike a deal. Otherwise, it will go very hard with you." Count Sylvius stared up at the ceiling. "And who is intimidating whom? Are you threatening me, or am I threatening you?" Holmes looked at him thoughtfully, like a chess master about to make a decisive move. Then he opened a desk drawer and took out a thick notebook. "Do you know what is in this little book?" "I have no idea, sir." "You? Me?" "Yes, sir, you. Every step of your vile and criminal life is recorded here. Go to the devil Holmes, the Count cried, springing to his feet with flashing eyes. Do not push my patience too far. It is all here, Count. Everything concerning the death of old Mrs. Harold, who left you her estate in Blamer, which you so quickly gambled away. What nonsense! And the whole story of Miss Minnie Warrender. Give it up. You'll get nothing out of that. And much more besides, Count. The robbery on the Riviera Express on February the 13th, 1892, and the forgery of the Lions Bank check in the same year. Well, there you are mistaken. Then I am not mistaken about all the rest. Listen, Count, you're a card player. What is the point of continuing the game when you know your opponent holds all the trump cards? What does all this chatter have to do with the precious stone? Patience, Count. Restrain your curiosity. Allow me to state the case with my usual thoroughness. All of this is evidence against you. But, in addition, I have undeniable proof in the matter of the diamond, both against you and your bodyguard. And what is this proof? First, the testimony of the cabman who drove you to Whitehall and the cabman who drove you back. Second, the evidence of the commissionaire who saw you near the window. And finally, I have the statement of Icky Sanders, who refused to cut the stone for you. Icky has turned informer, so the game is up. The veins bulged on the Count's forehead. Trying to suppress his agitation, he convulsively clenched his dark, hairy hands. He tried to speak, but his tongue failed him. These are my cards. I have laid them all before you. But one card is missing. The King of Diamonds is not there. I do not know where the stone is. And you never shall. You think so? Come, be reasonable, Count. Consider the circumstances. You will get 20 years. So will Sam Merton. What good is the stone to you then? None at all. If you return it, I promise you the matter will not go to court. We don't want you or Sam. We want the stone. Give it up, and if you behave yourselves, I guarantee your freedom. But if you're caught again, that will be the end. For now, my instructions are to recover the stone, not to capture you. And if I refuse, well, then I must take you instead of the stone. Holmes rang the bell, and Billy entered. I think, Count, it would be well to invite your friend Sam to this conference. After all, he is an interested party. Billy, you will see a large, ugly gentleman outside the front door. Ask him to come up. And if he refuses, sir, no violence, Billy. Do not be rough with him. If you tell him that Count Sylvius wants him, he will surely come. What are you planning to do? The Count asked as soon as Billy had left. I was just telling my friend Watson that I have caught a shark and a gudgeon in my net. Now I'm pulling it in, and both fish have surfaced. The Count rose from his chair, keeping his hand behind his back. Holmes slipped his own hand into the pocket of his dressing gown. You are not destined to die in your bed, Holmes. I have often thought so myself. But does it really matter? It seems likely, Count, that you also will meet your end in a vertical rather than a horizontal position. However, these dismal prophecies only spoil the mood. Is it not better to enjoy the present day without a care? The dark, hostile eyes of the underworld king suddenly flashed like those of a predator. Holmes's entire frame expressed tension and a readiness to repel a blow at any second. He seemed to grow even taller from the strain. No need to fumble for your revolver, my friend, he said calmly. You know perfectly well that you would not dare to use it, even if I gave you the time to draw. These revolvers are such a bother. They make so much noise, Count. Better to stick to air guns. Ah, I believe I hear the light step of your worthy companion. Good day, Mr. Merton. A bit dull waiting out in the street, wasn't it? The prize fighter, a bulky young man with a dull, stubborn, and crudely hewn face, stood awkwardly in the doorway, glancing around and bewildered. Holmes's pleasant tone puzzled him. And although Sam felt a vague sense of hostility, he did not know how to act. He turned to his more perceptive comrade. "What's going on here, Count? What does he want? What's the game?" His voice was deep and husky. The Count shrugged his shoulders. It was Holmes who answered Sam. "To put briefly, Mr. Merton, your game is up." The boxer continued to address his accomplice. "Is he joking or what? I'm in no mood for jokes right now." "That is quite understandable," said Holmes. "And I assure you that in an hour or two, you will be in an even less jokey mood. Now listen, Count Sylvius. I am a busy man and cannot waste time. I am going into my bedroom now. Pray, do not feel constrained by my absence. It will be easier for you to explain the situation to your friend without me. In the meantime, I shall play the barcarolle from the Tales of Hoffmann on my violin. In 5 minutes, I shall return for a final answer. I hope you clearly understand that you must choose one of two things. Either we take you, or we take the stone." Holmes withdrew, taking the violin that stood in the corner with him. A minute later, from behind the closed bedroom door, came the long-drawn, plaintive notes of that most haunting of melodies. "So, what's the deal?" Merton asked as his friend turned to him. "Does he know about the stone?" "Curse him! He knows too much. Perhaps he knows everything." "Gosh!" The boxer's sallow face turned a shade paler. "Icky Sanders is blown on us." "Icky? Just wait. I'll twist his neck even if I swing for it. That won't help us now. We have to decide what to do." "Hold on," said the boxer, looking suspiciously at the bedroom door. "We got to keep our wits about us with that sly fox. Is he eavesdropping? How can he be eavesdropping when he's playing?" "That's true. But is there anyone behind the curtain?" "There are too many curtains here." The boxer began to look around and suddenly noticed the mannequin by the window for the first time. In silent wonder, he stared at it, unable to utter a word. "It's a wax doll. Nothing more," the Count explained. "A fake, eh? It's grand. Madame Tussaud herself couldn't dream of such a thing. Looks just like him, the dressing gown and all. But curse these curtains, Count." "Never mind the curtains. We are wasting time, and we haven't much of it. He can arrest us because of this stone. The devil he can. But if we tell him where the stone is, he'll let us go. What? Give up £100,000 stone? There is no other way out." Merton scratched his short-cropped head. "Look here, he's all alone in there. Why not just settle him? If we finish him off, we'll have nothing left to fear." The Count shook his head. "He has a weapon, and he is on his guard. If we shoot him, we are unlikely to get out of here alive. Besides, he has surely already shared his information with the police." "Wait, what was that?" They heard a faint sound that seemed to come from the direction of the window. Both sprang up, but all was silent. Save for the strange figure in the armchair, there was no one else in the room. "It's just the street," said Merton. "Now look here, boss. You got a head on your shoulders. You have to think of something. Since we can't use our fists, it's up to you to decide what's to be done." "I have fooled better men than him," the Count replied. "The stone is here with me, in a secret pocket. I would never have dared to leave it anywhere else. It can be smuggled to Amsterdam tonight, and by Sunday they will have time to cut it into 4 pieces. He knows nothing of Van Setter. I thought Van Setter was going next week. He was, but now he'll have to leave on the next boat. One of us must slip down to Lime Street and warn him. The false bottom isn't ready yet. It can't be helped. We'll have to risk it and take it as it is. There isn't a moment to lose." And again, like a hunter used to being on the alert, he fell silent and stared intently at the window. Yes, that faint sound had undoubtedly come from the street. And Holmes is easily fooled. That idiot, curse him, said he wouldn't touch us if he got the stone. Well, then, we'll promise him a stone. We'll lead him on a false scent, and by the time he figures it out, the stone will be in Holland and will be across the border. That's the spirit. Sam Merton grinned broadly. You go to the Dutchman and tell him to hurry up. I'll handle this simpleton and try to bamboozle him. I'll tell him the stone is in Liverpool. Curse that music, it's getting on my nerves. By the time Holmes finds out it's not in Liverpool, the pebble will be in 4 pieces and we'll be on the open sea. Come over here, where you'll be seen through the keyhole. Here it is, the little beauty. How do you dare carry it around with you? It's the safest way. If we manage to snatch it from Whitehall, anyone could steal it from my flat. Let me have a look at it. Count Sylvius, ignoring the outstretched dirty hand, cast a disapproving glance at his accomplice. You don't think I'm going to double-cross you, do you? Now look here, Count. I'm getting tired of your ways. Now, Sam, don't take offense. We can't afford to quarrel now. If you want to see the beauty properly, come here to the window. Here, hold it up to the light. Thank you. In a flash, Holmes sprang from the armchair where the mannequin had sat and snatched the diamond. In one hand he held the stone, and in the other he leveled a pistol at the Count's head. In utter confusion, both rogues recoiled. Before they could recover their wits, Holmes pressed the electric bell. Don't even think of resisting. Gentlemen, I beg of you, spare the furniture. It must be clear to you that your position is hopeless. The police are waiting below. The Count was so stunned that his malice and fear faded into the background for a moment. But how on earth? He gasped. Your surprise is quite natural. You are unaware that behind that curtain there is a second door leading to the bedroom. If I am not mistaken, you must have heard me removing the mannequin from the chair. But luck was on my side, and I overheard your charming conversation, which might have been far less candid had you known of my presence. The Count stood like a man who had surrendered his arms. You've won, Holmes. I believe you are the very devil himself. Quite possibly, Holmes replied with a polite smile. The slow-witted Sam Merton did not immediately grasp what had happened. It was only when heavy footsteps echoed on the stairs that his power of speech finally returned. It's the police, no doubt. But there's one thing I don't get. That cursed violin is still scraping away. You are quite right, Holmes replied. Let it play on. These modern gramophones are a remarkable invention. The police burst into the room. Handcuffs clicked, and the criminals were led away to the waiting cab. Watson remained to congratulate Holmes on yet another leaf added to his laurel wreath. Their conversation was soon interrupted by the appearance of the imperturbable Billy with a tray in his hands. Lord Candlemere, sir. Show him in, Billy. This is the famous peer who represents the interests of august personages, said Holmes. A man of great loyalty and quite remarkable in his own way, though, if I may say so, somewhat old-fashioned. Shall we make him be a little more polite? Let's take a small liberty, shall we? He, of course, knows nothing of what has happened. The door opened, and a thin, upright figure with a long face appeared on the threshold. His jet-black whiskers in the mid-Victorian style seemed at odds with his stooping shoulders and the hesitant, elderly gait. Holmes approached the newcomer with the utmost courtesy and shook his unresponsive hand. Good day, Lord Candlemere. It is rather chilly for the summer season, but it is quite warm in these rooms. Allow me to help you off with your coat. No, thank you. I do not intend to stay. Pray, let me help you. Holmes insisted, laying a hand on the lord's sleeve. My friend, Dr. Watson, will confirm that sharp fluctuations in temperature are extremely harmful. His lordship pulled his arm away irritably. I am quite comfortable, and I do not intend to linger. I have only dropped in to see how the matter you have taken upon yourself is progressing. It is difficult, very difficult. I knew you would say so. A clear note of mockery rang in the old lord's voice. Every man, sooner or later, realizes that his powers are limited, Mr. Holmes. But at least it cures us of self-confidence, that vice so common to mankind. I confess, sir, I am utterly baffled. That is only natural. In particular, one circumstance puzzles me. Might I count on your assistance? You come to me for advice too late. It seemed to me that you were used to relying on your own wits in every situation. Nevertheless, I am ready to help you. You see, Lord Candlemere, we can, of course, bring a charge against the actual thieves of the stone. When you catch them, naturally. But what measures of influence should we apply to the receiver? The person who conceals the stolen property. Is it not premature to ask such a question? Nevertheless, everything must be thought out in advance. On what evidence and whom, in your opinion, should we consider guilty? The person in whose possession the stone is found, and you would consider that sufficient ground for arrest. Undoubtedly. Holmes rarely laughed, but according to Watson, at that moment he was nearer to it than ever before. In that case, my dear sir, however regrettable it may be, I shall be forced to demand your arrest. You take too many liberties, Mr. Holmes, Lord Candlemere cried, truly incensed, as a long-faded flame flickered back into his sallow cheeks. In my 50 years of public life, I have never heard anything of the sort. I am a man of business, burdened with serious responsibilities, and I have no time for foolish jests. I will tell you frankly, sir, I never believed in your talents, and in my opinion, it would have been much better if the case had been left to the official police. Your behavior proves that I was right. I have the honor to wish you a good night. But Holmes barred the peer's way, standing between him and the door. Wait, sir. To be the temporary possessor of the Mazarin Stone is one thing. But if you leave this room with the stone, it may lead to much more serious charges. Sir, this is becoming intolerable. Let me pass. First, put your hand in the right-hand pocket of your overcoat. What is the meaning of this, sir? Do not argue, sir, but obey. A moment later, the astonished peer, blinking and muttering incoherently, stood before Holmes, holding an enormous yellow diamond in his trembling hand. But how? How can this be, Mr. Holmes? Terrible, terrible, Lord Candlemere, Holmes cried. My old friend Dr. Watson will tell you that I have a passion for such mystifications. And, besides, I have a weakness for dramatic situations. I placed the stone, a great liberty on my part, of course, in your pocket at the beginning of our conversation. The old peer looked from the stone to Holmes's smiling face. I am indeed bewildered, sir. It is truly the Mazarin Stone. We are extremely indebted to you, Mr. Holmes. Perhaps your sense of humor is, as you said, somewhat peculiar, and you choose rather unfortunate times for your jests. But I completely withdraw the remarks I made concerning your remarkable abilities as a detective. But how on earth? The case is only half finished, and the details are not so important. I have no doubt, Lord Candlemere, that the pleasure you will take in reporting the successful conclusion of the case to the high circles where you are heading will be some atonement for my misplaced joke. Billy, show his lordship out, and tell Mrs. Hudson that I should be glad if she would serve dinner for two, and as soon as possible.